Well, I don't know, Matthew, if you're up on the news much, but there is no climate crisis anymore now that the Senate passed the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. That's the most
Right.
historic climate investment there's ever been. Chuck Schumer tweeted out earlier this morning, "This is for the tens of millions of people who march for climate justice. This bill is for you." Paul Krugman says, the Democrats have given us an opportunity to save the planet from doom now because of this bill. Maybe we'll live another day thanks to the Democrats passing the Inflation Reduction Act. So is there even a need for a Green Party anymore? I mean,
Well,
this problem is solved, isn't it?
this is what I don't understand about Matthew's whole campaign. You're agreeing. Why do you want to take votes from the Democrats who are solving this problem?
Yeah.
What are you doing? What are you doing, man?
I think it's as you guys know, and I assume most of the folks watching, it's this ongoing suicide pact we have, right? I mean, that's the way it's been described by others, and that's how I see it. And whether it's with the climate, whether it's with war, whether it's what we're doing to our society, whether it's like the economic policies we can continue to pursue, right? That squeeze everything to the top. I just saw this week that another poll has come out. So now it's pretty clear that yes, more than 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. That's being reaffirmed now multiple times that we're closing in on 2/3 of our people live paycheck to paycheck here. How is that sustainable? How is that not going to crater? And then I got in this climate collapse, which, yeah, I guess according to Joe Manchin and Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden, we don't have to worry about anymore. It'll be important 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, when we're hitting, when we're over +2C, when the collapse is occurring now, but when the collapse is really showing how and why it's described as existential. When we were having both our societal and our economic infrastructure collapse because of the pressure of climate change, which is what is going to happen. People need to remember that. Remember how it was cheered on, how these false victories were proclaimed, and many, many people, including those in the environmental movement, in the climate movement, in the progressive political community, cheered for it because it was expedient for them. It was good for them in the short term. And the damage this is going to cause, if people are not familiar with it, I'd say go and look at the work the Center for Biological Diversity has done on this. But the amount of acreage that's going to be leased, both onshore and offshore, is doubling the amount of land and water that is available for the oil and gas companies to exploit. That in itself is going to negate anything that this proposed legislation does, particularly since all those leases have to occur before any of the wind and solar projects occur. I mean, this is absolutely madness. This is we've got a gun to our head here, being held hostage by the oil and gas companies through people like Manchin and Schumer and Biden. And our downfall, not just our downfall, but that of all living things, is coming because certain people want to keep making money for the fossil fuel industry.
Yeah, and I mean, the really sickening. Sorry, Russell, go ahead.
What do you say to people here in New York who are being viciously mauled by sharks as a result of cleaning up our waters, who may favor this bill?
I'm familiar with the New York Anti-Shark Caucus, and
it's very powerful.
Yeah, but it is like the what we're doing to our ecosystems, and we can make is the fundamental aspect of this collapse that we're talking about, and the fact that there are what are called positive feedback loops, in the sense that things continue to get worse. Like the more water there is in the atmosphere, the warmer it gets, the more water there is, and it's acceleration. And what we're seeing now, because of our desire, our choice not to do something about it for 2 generations now, we've known about this. The consequences are becoming more and more severe. And it's even in things such as like the cost of our food, the aspects of migration, our housing, how like say in North Carolina here, what is going to happen when our beach communities are in 20 years, 25 years, have to be abandoned because they are flooded out from sea level rise? Where are those people going to go? And the same thing too, we've had towns that have been wiped out due to floods. As that becomes more and more, and the same, we have climate refugees here. I meet them all, not all the time, but I've met them. People who come from California who say, like, I'm moving here because I can't handle the fires any longer. We are going to have this internal migration.
The whole Western United States is becoming unsustainable. I was living in California 20 years ago, and I read a book that said this was going to happen. And it's one of the reasons I didn't stay in California, actually, because all of this, this is 20 years ago. It was talking about how by the time the Colorado River gets to Mexico, it's a trickle. 20 years ago, it was saying the snow melt is not what it used to be to feed the river, that entire region was settled. Climate change aside, it was settled during an unusually wet period in that region. It doesn't normally get as much rain as it got during that 100-year period that we settled the West. So there was already that problem, climate change aside.
And now Russell is going to move to the climate-proof city of New Orleans, Louisiana.
Listen, I've said this again and again. If I were 25, I wouldn't even consider it. By the time it's underwater, I'll probably be dead or close enough to it that I'll be happy to float out.
Yeah, I mean, that's the privilege some of us have. I'll be 50 next year. So by the time we're talking about the +2.5C, I'll be dead, or I'll be in an old age home someplace and just, but
I told you so.
Yeah, but I mean,
it's nice to see you guys are in touch with your death privilege.
Right? I mean,
your impending death privilege that you enjoy.
Good luck, Keaton, and all you younger guys with this, because I'm going to be ashes at that point. But the thing about the reality is that when I was having dinner with my godkids a couple of weeks ago, they just turned 7, twins.
I have twins too. I got twin 3-year-olds.
Okay, yeah. So this is what they're going to have. This is what they're going to have to endure. By the time they're my age, 42 years from now or whatever, they are going to have to be living through the consequences of what we chose not to do, or chose to celebrate in the sense of this, farcical IRA that, makes sure that what's so damning about it and so maddening about it, right, is the fact that bills like this climate legislation, it's making sure that the people who caused this climate crisis, Exxon and BP and all those others, that they're going to profit from it. That's what I think. I think that underscores the sickness involved in all this and why we are in this suicide pact, because we are making sure that the very companies that are causing this are the ones that are going to make the most from it. And I think that is what we really need to understand about who we are as a society. This is what we're choosing to do.
Yeah. Well, what they're basically doing is they are just perpetuating the sort of win-win delusion that, we can solve climate change and let all the oil companies get richer, right? Yeah. Like they act as if this isn't zero sum to a certain extent. Like, no, you can't enrich Shell and solve the climate crisis. No, you can't do those things. And and what this bill suggests is that, yes, we can. I mean, and that's been really what the Democrats have been saying forever. They've been peddling sort of the solution to this crisis as a giant business opportunity.
Yes.
Right? They just refuse to reconcile with the reality that, no, this is going to cost something. And it's going to cost some people a lot. Some very special, powerful interests a lot. And unless we're willing to actually be honest about that, we're not going to solve anything. One more thing I just wanted to point out. What's especially sickening to me about these last 24 to 72 hours, right, since it became pretty obvious that this was going to pass, the so-called liberal media, even like left liberal media like Vox and NPR, they are just gushing about this. And the thing that's just so sickening about that is everything that you just said, Matthew, about this is a suicide pact. We're just like deluding ourselves, lying to ourselves that this is somehow this transformative bill. They are doing that. These media outlets, right? Of course, we know why Manchin's doing that. We know why Sinema's doing that. We know why Biden is doing that. These media outlets are doing that simply to get Joe Biden a short-term win.
Right.
They are touting this for the sole purpose of getting Biden's poll numbers up a few points. Right. That's it.
Well, that's the real danger here, and that's the danger you have with a number of things. Like, say they were able to pass somehow $15 minimum wage, which they're not going to do, but say they were going to do something like that. What would occur then is you would not see another minimum wage hike for another 12 or 13 years, and that's what I'm afraid is going to happen here with this, where you would have this celebration about the climate crisis is over. Yeah, Joe Manchin and Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden fixed it. And it's coupled with the fantasy of carbon capture, this idea that there's going to be, as the Greeks said, what Deus ex machina, like the God from the sky is going to come down and save us. Technology is going to save us, right? And we don't have to worry about it. It's going to take itself out. It's going to take care of itself. We've got it. And so does this effectively, if there is a second Joe Biden presidency, because we have this, does that mean nothing else is going to be done about the climate for the next 6 years?
Yes.
I mean,
well,
right?
yes,
I mean,
like,
because we
That's
did this.
exactly what it means.
Yeah, we had the great 2022 IRA. We don't have to do anything about the climate. I mean, this is where
That's what they did. That's what they did after they passed the ACA, right? That's why
exactly
Medicare
right.
for all is a non-starter. Hey, we did healthcare already 13 years ago. Leave us alone.
That's right.
Well,
And that's
this
why
is-
yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm disappointed in Sanders for not standing up harder. He filed his amendments, he did his things, but then he eventually went along with it.
Yep, he
And,
voted for it.
you talk
that's
about a
Bernie.
guy who's got death privilege. I mean, come on, man. At least go out, go out fighting, go out swinging, be really hated. But some of us are going to love you for what you did.
No, absolutely. I think you're right. You're 100%
you're right. We're not
on about that.
we're not going to get another climate bill. Not that this is for until what now? 2026 now at the earliest. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he put those amendments up and he folded, but those amendments were voted down, and we are going to do a full show on the IRA probably later in the week because there's so much into it. We have enough to cover this evening that we're not going to get to all of it. But those amendments were voted down basically unanimously. They fell like 1-97, right? All the Democrats voted against the Bernie amendments, and that tells you something. It tells you that all the Democrats care about is making this a win for President Joe Biden, making this a short-term political win for President Joe, because they voted against things that they have been campaigning on. They voted against these things that they have claimed to be for this whole time, like extending the child tax credit. What was the other thing? The vision, hearing, dental, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
They voted down all of that unanimously because the most important message they are interested in sending now is that this is a win for Joe. Joe came through because they want Joe's approval rating to get up in the mid-40s so that maybe they hold the house. I mean, it's a fantasy. But anyway, that's why they are making these compromises. It's the most cynical and frankly stupid thing you could even think of because Joe Biden's not going to be able to hold his poll numbers in the mid-40s. I don't even think he's going to get to the mid-40s after this, honestly. If it does, it'll go back down.
I don't think it'll really get a bump from it.
No, I don't think he will either. I don't think it's and it exposes as a lie, right? This idea that the Democrats can't whip their party, right? Exposes as a lie this idea that we can't get Manchin and Sinema and others, under control. Because they do this. They, as you said, people who very clearly co-sponsors of the Medicare for All Act. Brian Schatz was one of them who was so vocal about decrying what Sanders was trying to do and how he was going to vote against it. This shows that they can whip their own party when they want to, when there is a benefit to their donors.
Well, no. Kristen Sinema stuck to her guns. The people of Arizona demanded the preservation of the carried interest tax loophole.
You're
and
right,
she
exactly, yeah.
stood strong for them, man. She I heard particularly the Taco Bell workers were really upset about that.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was, Matt Taibbi or David Sirota or someone described it as like, you can't kill that thing. It's like the Terminator, decades have gone by and no one has been able to get rid of that loophole. But it just shows the power that, wealthy people have, even something that makes sense to anybody, this idea that these guys should be allowed to get away with not paying taxes on income just because you call it something different. And particularly income that's passive income they're not out there busted, they're not like they're building a house next door to me. They weren't not like the guys were out there the other day putting that roof on in the North Carolina summer, they're not earning money that way, but those guys putting that roof up, they're paying a higher tax than those folks working in their offices in Wall
don't
Street.
let Stephanie Rule here say that, because she worked her ass off for her
right,
place.
to get to Park Avenue. Exactly. Yeah. You had not only, speaking of Stephanie Rule, I forget the MSNBC commentator's name. He's like, a big Democratic mega donor, but like, he's an investor, an economist. I forget his name. He wears the thick framed eyeglasses. But even he was talking about what the CBO has said, which is that this Inflation Reduction Act is not even going to begin to reduce inflation for a few years, not a few months, for a few years. This is why I say Joe Biden's poll numbers are not going to get much of a bounce out of this, and whatever bounce he does get, it's probably going to go away when in a few months people realize, hey, the Inflation Reduction Act did not reduce inflation, right? I mean, if you call something the Coke and Hookers Act, you have to give Coke and hookers, right? I mean, it has to deliver on it. And they're talking about not months, years before inflation actually starts being reduced. And the only real rationale for that is that they're going to have $270 billion of surplus cash over 10 years. So again, this is packaged as deficit reduction. And that theoretically is going to bring inflation down. When? It's going to take a while for that to happen, if it happens at all.
Well, that's if you believe the deficit is causing this inflation, which I don't, because we've had decades of deficits and they didn't cause inflation. And now, exactly the benefits of this, the few benefits that there are there, such as the drug negotiation between Medicare and the pharmaceutical companies, don't take effect to 2026. And even then, it's very limited.
It's 10 drugs. 10 drugs by 2026 and 20 drugs by 2030.
Right, and we'll see if that even still in play. Let's put a reminder on our phones to check back in 2026 and see what happened, because I could see it not happening. That gives the government, here I say we're going to do a more thorough show in the IRA later in the week. We're doing a pretty good one now, I would have to say, for people who this just came out. This gives the government the option of negotiating drug prices. You think President Donald Trump is going to negotiate with pharmaceutical companies? You think Ron DeSantis is going to play hardball with Eli Lilly? I don't think so. Right. Once they control everything, they're just going to let the pharmaceutical companies charge what they want. There's nothing binding in here. It just gives Medicare the option to play hardball. They don't have to follow through on it. You think the Republicans are going to follow through on that? No, of course not. We'd be lucky if the Democrats do. We'd be lucky if President Joe Manchin, come 2028, or however far right the Democrats go by then, he might say, don't worry about it. Forget it.
By then, the Democrats will be running Trump.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's, we laugh, but again, let's bookmark all this and remember and come back and look at it, because, the things that say that you brought the ACA, the things that supposedly the ACA was going to do, the benefits it was going to bring, and it did bring. I mean, there are people in my family benefited from the ACA.
Oh, I benefit from it. I say that I'm on Obamacare.
But tens and tens of millions more have not. I just saw the numbers a week or so ago that in the from 2011 to 2021, premiums have gone up almost 50%, and deductibles and copays have gone up 70%. We've got this 90 million Americans are uninsured or underinsured. 100 million Americans, a new poll the other day found 100 million Americans are either foregoing going to the doctor or trying to skimp and cut back on essentials in order to pay their healthcare costs. 100 million. There's only 330 million of us. It's 1 in 3 of us, and a lot of us are covered by Medicare or Medicaid, or a guy like me in the Veterans, from the Veterans Affairs. So, but we go back and we look and see what was supposed to have happened. And it wasn't supposed to be like this. This is not what they were saying. Some people were saying, some people had it right. But, certainly the idea of celebrating in the short term, this idea that's going to get, as you guys are saying, Biden a bump when no one's going to see the results of this. If they're, and we're only going to see results years from now, if these things even take place, which we're not sure they will, as we've been describing. So it's more of the same. It's more of the political theater. It shows the vitality and the importance of the corporate media, right, in causing this circus to go on, right? I mean, the cheerleading from MSNBC, I got to imagine on Fox, it's just mass denunciations and like pitchforks and torches and nooses and everything about this, right? It's all that emotional outrage. And then the nonsense that comes out of the New York Times, the Post, the Wall Street Journal, this centrist corporate bought commentary yeah, I mean, but it delivers nothing. And it's even worse than that because it allows a deadly status quo to continue and allows climate change to get worse. And it makes a few people more richer than they are already.
All right. Well, Matthew, we're going to let you go in just a minute. Thank you so much for joining us. But before you do, please let people know where they can get involved with your campaign. Now that you're on the ballot, it's time to go win.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. We're excited for this. It's been, we launched the campaign in January. We spent the first 4 months or more of the campaign collecting signatures, trying to get on the ballot, and then we spent the last 2 months, almost 2.5 months, fighting the State Board of Elections, the Democratic Party in court to get on the ballot because we deserve to be on the ballot. And now we're able to campaign. We've got 3 months. Elections are 3 months from tomorrow. If people can support us so that we can get out and get as many of the 7.5 million North Carolina registered voters to know who we are, that would be a huge help. So if you can donate, please go to MatthewHo.org. MatthewHoforsenate.org.
I got it. One step ahead of you. I'm putting it in the chat right now.
I think after 9 months of doing this, I'd know my website. But MatthewHoforsenate.org.
We've been doing this for 3 years. We don't know our website.
Yeah, right.
Please donate what you can. Encourage others to donate. And let's have the opportunity for North Carolinians to vote for someone other than those who think that the IRA is a good thing.
Please clap.